Welcome to this Nordic Super Tableau TUG, or not Tableau TUG because that's Tableau TUG actually user group. So Tableau user group. We've done this. This is the fourth time I think we've done Scandinavian TUG a few times, and now we've done this Nordic one second time. Last time we also had a guy from Denmark speaking. This time the person got sick, or the whole family with the flu season. So we don't have anyone from Denmark this time, but we still have a lot of people from other places. So this is a collaboration between Stockholm user group. They only do stuff in Sweden, in Stockholm apparently, or at least that's since they only call it Stockholm. We are more inclusive in Norway and Finland, so we call it Norway user group and Finland user group. So we do, of course, these virtual hybrid meetings. So we have people online that I can see from Norway and Finland and elsewhere as well. This is a name I think I've seen before. So there's a lot of people, not a lot of, there's people online as well. This is the agenda of today. I'm just going to do some housekeeping, some introductions as well. And then we're going to see how to do cool stuff in Tableau with the Flerlage twins. Some ball guys from the US. They also have a brother, but I'm not sure if Keith is joining us today. And then we're going to switch to locally to Lara, who sits there, who's going to do a presentation on from the Norwegian Offshore Directorate, or Directorate in Norwegian, where they've gone from server to public, to use Tableau public. And then everybody who runs or exercise. Now Tero will show us 25 different ways of visualizing that kind of data. So that should be an inspiration now when we're stuffing ourselves with pizza and beer and heading into the holiday season, I guess. And then Guomundur from Iceland will talk about virtual spaceship analytics. He works in a gaming company, so they have some spaceships. Spaceship analytics in there, so that's going to be interesting to see. And then we're finishing up with Sebastine. He's now joined us. I make him a presenter mode from Sweden. He's now just moved to Sweden, if I'm not mistaken, started to be part of the Stockholm user group. So he's going to talk about how to build a spiral chart. So that's a bit more hands-on technical, I hope, or I guess. We'll see. So let's see what I did have in here. If I click on the correct screen, multiple screens is always an issue. It's being recorded, so especially for the first session, which will be a whole bunch of tips in 1 hour. You won't remember all of them, and you can't write down all of them. So it will be recorded, so you can watch it later on. I did a speed tipping session with Nyung Lee a couple of weeks ago, and I saw somebody in the comments saying, "I'm going to watch the recording after." In slow motion, because there were so many tiny tips that were shown in such a short time. If you have any questions to the speakers or to the host, use the Q&A or use the chat room to say hi, and then enjoy. Since we're in this place, we're enjoying some free drinks and pizza. We're going to thank Crane Consulting, Tableau, and of course in Finland, Knowit as well, that are sponsoring this event. And we have some money to burn tonight, so especially for us in Oslo, we're gonna empty the war casket. In a few weeks, I'm going to London. Some of the people who are presenting are going to London. They're identical twins, so I can't see a difference between them. And one of them are actually in London already, right? But one is also going to be in the data fam. So that's the small version of TC Europe. There will be a lot of people, a lot of workshops, a lot of sessions. So if you have the time, come to London. If you don't have the time, I'm not allowed to say, but there might be some recordings. You don't know, but I never said that. And of course, this is the code to scan to find the tickets. And obviously, I have to promote 2 of the sessions that I'm doing. Why wouldn't I? So, guess who? I mean, there's a hashtag bald men in data. We have 3 of them here. This is the brothers on the right-hand side, and then you have me. And we can, I don't know. I mean, everybody looks the same, so I don't know which one is which, but there's at least two of them that are Hall of Fame visionaries. They've been doing so much fun stuff with Tableau over the years. This year at TC, they had the keynote as well. I wonder who they paid to get that one, but they did. It was really fun. And if you haven't checked their blog, the Flerlage Twins, there's so many cool blog posts and so much interesting stuff there. So if you want to learn more about Tableau, that's the blog post to go to. So was it Kevin or was it Ken who started?
Ken started before me. He was using it for about a year and a half before me, Ken.
Then we're talking about
2 years.
Yeah.
And we're talking about which year or which version?
2016.
2016, yeah. And I came around early 2018. And between us, the blog I think, Ken, did you start writing before? You started writing a blog before Tableau? Maybe a couple blog posts before Tableau, before you even started using Tableau?
Yeah.
We just hit 10 years on the website. So we're going to be doing our Tableau Conference 2025 content. As Tor mentioned, we did that back at the Tableau Conference. And we'll talk a little bit about that. But quick introductions. My name is Kevin Flerlage. This is my identical twin brother, Ken Flerlage. We run the website, flerlagetwins.com. We are at 449 blog posts currently. That is and just hit 10 years. So I'd say 445 of them are about Tableau and 4 other random ones. We are both consultants at Moxie Analytics. And as Tor mentioned, we are both Hall of Fame Tableau visionaries. There's 30 in the world, so that's a great honor. We work for a small but mighty consulting firm, as I mentioned, Moxie Analytics. It's Ken, myself, and Serena Roberts, our CEO. She founded it back in 2019. We do lots of stuff, standards, best practice, training, of course, data visualization. Everything that Ken and I do is in Tableau. We don't do any Power BI or any of that other stuff. I shouldn't have said that word, but we do 100% Tableau. We do some training outside of Tableau about data visualization, but generally speaking, we do data project work. We build dashboards. We do something called fractional data here, where people can get us for X number of hours a week, and we can work on whatever Tableau-related tasks they'd like, even do some data modeling stuff as well. Ken's been working on some of that this week. And then we do a bunch of data viz training, including a beginner boot camp, which is coming soon. We said this at the Tableau conference, saying coming soon. It is actually coming soon now. We expect to likely release this year. So if you're interested in joining the wait list, that'll be our beginner boot camp that is online, self-paced. You can do it as you like. So check out that with QR code. It'll be much more cost effective. And then we have an advanced boot camp. We have one of these running in February, but we really get into some deep advanced topics. Lots of mapping, set actions, parameter actions, some more advanced data modeling, and some more advanced topics. And then we have our tool agnostic presentation about the soft skills of data visualization, called the softer side of data viz. I think we have one of those coming up, and I can't remember when. If you've ever joined us at the Tableau conference, well, first off, we always like to take a selfie. So there's a couple of them. And this one is actually from last year in the keynote hall, where I think we had about 4,000 people. So that was very, very cool. But if you've ever joined us, you probably heard us tell the story about when we actually really met Serena. We met before, but didn't really get to know her. But it was Ken, myself, and Serena back at Tableau Conference in 2022 in Vegas. And we were at this event, and we decided the hotel was pretty close by. We could see it, right? Well, what looks like a 2-block walk in Vegas actually turned into a 2-hour walk. So we took this long walk, and that long walk ended in what we call the infamous ham sandwich wipeout of 2022, where Serena literally stepped on a ham sandwich and wiped out like clean on her back. It was a very greasy ham sandwich. And we laughed and pointed once we realized she was okay. And then the next year, we had a few people join us. We had Josh and George and the Sarah Bart join us, and we did it again. We took a long walk, and we were actually on this quest to find this certain drink called a bramble. So we stopped in a bunch of different locations, and we were looking for this drink, and we ultimately did find it. But the point of this whole story is that I hand drew all of these characters in PowerPoint. In PowerPoint, I drew characters. Yeah, maybe it doesn't make sense, but you can see I just pieced this thing together, and this becomes a little caricature of Serena. And on top of that, I actually animated all this in PowerPoint. So a bunch of people with plus a bunch of squiggly lines, and throw a background on there, and it sort of looks like we're walking, right? So I spent an incredible amount of time on this. PowerPoint, probably not the right tool for drawing caricatures and animating them. And I spent over the course of 2 presentations, probably like 200 hours of work. 400 hours of work. It's like what, 10 work weeks across 2 years. It's probably an insane amount of time, but I did. And then we were interviewed by Tableau, and I just want to share this with you because it all kind of comes full circle. Somebody shout out if you cannot hear the volume, the audio.
All right. So if you didn't make it to their packed session here at Tableau conference.
Oh, I'm sorry. What did I do?
Ken and Kevin have brought some bonus cool tips just for our online audience. So Ken, where are we starting?
Well, Kevin spent so much time with his PowerPoint puppet show that we had to cut a bunch of my favorite PowerPoint puppet shows. PowerPoint puppet shows. PowerPoint puppet show.
So you can imagine after spending 400 hours creating these animations and these characters, and then Ken relegates it to a PowerPoint puppet show. I went from this Tableau conference, high to very, very sad. I was pretty upset for quite some time, but I'd say, about 6.5 months of intense therapy. And I realized that I shouldn't let Ken's disgusting words dictate my happiness. And instead, I decided to just sort of lean into this whole puppet show thing. So this is what I did at the Tableau conference on the keynote stage in front of about 4,000 people. I'll play you a clip of this video. And I decided, well, I'm not going to let Ken's disgusting words dictate my happiness. And so instead of doing that, I thought maybe I'd just sort of lean into this whole puppet show thing.
Oh God, no, don't.
And I want to introduce you to somebody. This is Keith Flerlage, everybody. Hi, everybody. Hi, Kevin. You not going to say hi to Ken? I just threw up in my mouth a little bit. You still upset about that whole puppet show comment? Well, yeah. Ken Flerlage is a dummy.
Oh, that's not very nice.
That's not very nice. Well, Keith, would you like to introduce yourself to everybody here? Sure. My name is Keith Flerlage. I run a website. It's on the back of the shirt. It's called KenFlerlageIsADummy.com, where I have about 450 blog posts, and every single one of them is about how Ken Flerlage is a dummy. All right, that's enough of that. If you want to see the rest of the silly puppet show, you can check that out on YouTube and on Salesforce Plus. I actually have some QR code for that here momentarily. All right, we're going to get to some tips. This is how to do cool stuff in Tableau. This is our 4th time doing that same title, but with different tips, tricks, and techniques. Like Tor mentioned, we're going to move fast. This is currently being recorded. You can find it on Tableau's YouTube. You can find it on demand on Salesforce Plus. You can scan that QR code, and you can get to all the related content at flerlagetwins.com/coolstuff2025. And if you come to the Tableau conference in 2026, it's 6 months away, 5.5 months away. Hopefully we'll be doing how to do cool stuff in Tableau 2026. Before we move on, we just want to say thanks to an awesome community. Most of the tips in here are our own, but we did borrow some tips from other folks, and some of that stuff is just inspired by other folks. So we want to thank those people specifically, and of course, the entire data fam. We would not be here where we are now without the incredible community we have. So with that, we're going to get to it. We're going to jump right into some tips, and I'm starting at the wrong place. I'm going to start off with some cool technique stuff. Everybody see, I assume you can see my screen okay. If not, just shout it out. Let me know. So I'm going to start off. I'm going to do two different techniques and walk through each of those. So this is a visualization I created for Tableau Public a few months ago. It looks at the Saturday Night Live 5-timers club. It's those that have hosted Saturday Night Live at least 5 times. And if you've got an eagle eye, which so many of us are very detail oriented in this business, you probably see that Paul Simon's only hosted 4 times. You know, he's an honorary member because he's been on the show a million times as a guest singer as well. We zoom in here. What we'll see is that I've kind of got this bar chart here. I'm just using it as a dot plot. It's counting the number of times they've hosted. And then the labeling is a little bit interesting. I have these sort of offset labels with an icon and a name. I had a problem when I tried to line these up, is that these things just sort of stacked on top of each other. So I had to sort of offset every other one so that it was easier to read. I did this in 2 different sheets I think I used drop lines, but I was curious if I could actually build something like this in one sheet. So if we look at this data in a more simplified manner, here's all our different hosts. This is how many times they hosted. If we zoom in, we see the problem. We see Drew Barrymore's cut off. See John Mulaney, his last name's wrapped into 2 lines. Scarlett Johansson's cut off. It's very hard to read, right? So this is not a very good solution. What we can do is, in fact, create these sort of offset labeling, and it's not too difficult to do. If we look at this more closely, all these little leader lines, all they are is just thin bars. So we have the bars on top. We've got a dual axis to create these thin bars that are going down, and every other one is a little bit longer, right? So this offsets Steve Martin from Alec Baldwin, so that his text is not jammed right on top of the other, right? Okay, so how, and a close-up view of what this looks like. So how are we going to build this? Well, I'm going to start off by counting the bars. I'm going to ultimately offset every other one. So I need to kind of know I need to start counting these. I'm going to use the index function to do that. Index is just going to allow me to count them. So if I throw index on our label, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it just counts the number of bars. Pretty simple. And then using this count, I can determine whether or not these numbers are odd or even. I'm going to do that using something called modulo. If you've not used modulo, what that is essentially saying is, hey, take a number and divide it by, if we do, in this case, we're using modulo 2. If I say 4 modulo 2, it's like saying 4 divided by 2, then give me the remainder. That is the result of a modulo. So if we take 4 divided by 2, the remainder is 0. If we take 5 divided by 2, the remainder is 1. So if we take this number, this index we used before, and then do a modulo 2, anything with a remainder of 1 is going to be odd. Anything with a remainder of 0 is going to be even, right? Just to show that works, let's throw that on the label as well. Odd, even, odd, even, odd, even, odd, even, right? Okay, now that tells us that that'll help us to offset these. So maybe we'll make the even bars a little bit longer than the odd bars. So let's do that piece. So I'm using that odd even calculation that I just created. So if it's odd, then let's just use a bar length of -1. We're going to make a bar that's -1 in length down here. And if it's even, we'll make a bar length of -3. All right. Yep, we're just hard coding. We'll come back to that. So I'm going to throw this out on our view. Let's make it a dual axis. Let's synchronize it. Synchronize. Let's unshow this header. Then, of course, Tableau wants to add this measure name stuff. I don't want that. Let's go to this one. We're going to make it much smaller. let's pull all this stuff off of our label here. Now, here's our header labels. Again, those are problems, so we can just get rid of those for now. And then I just got these first and last name calculations. I did them as first name and last name, so we just put them on 2 different rows. So let's add this to our view, and it's not going to work. That's because we're using index, and that's a table calculation. So I just need to tell you how this thing should compute. I just need to include first and last name in there. And I'm going to make this text just a bit smaller. Let's make it 11. And did that work? Let's make it a little bit smaller than that. Yeah. And now we can see we have these offset labeled bar charts, right? So let's take these off too. So that looks pretty darn good. Okay. All right. So here's the original, right? But I'm highlighting Alec Baldwin. Alec Baldwin has hosted more than anybody else. He's hosted 17 times. He's been on the show like 100 because he used to do the Trump impression. So he's been on the show a bunch, but he's hosted 17 times. But what if Alec Baldwin hosts every single episode for the next 5 years? That 17 may go to 117. And all of a sudden, my labels don't look so good anymore. And the reason for that is that we hard-coded this -1 and -3. That worked when the max value was 17, but it doesn't work when the max value is 117. So we should really make this offset labeling, or the length of these bars, dynamic, that changes with the data. So instead of hard coding like we did here, this -1 and -3, what I'm going to do is just make everything a ratio of the max value. So I'm going to take the window max of how many times they were hosted. So in the original, that would be 17. And this one, it's 117. And I'm just going to divide by -20. And then this one, I'm going to divide by -6. Why -20 and -6? It's just about that 1 to 3 ratio up here. I guess I could have made it -18. So it's 18 to 6 ratio, right? But that I just did a little trial and error to see about what worked. And that seemed to work. So let's hit OK. And instead of that hard-coded one, let's drag this up on top of it. It's going to want, let's get rid of, I don't know why it doesn't show it. Let's get rid of that header. And now I have 2 table calculations, by the way. I have an index and a window max. So we want to make sure that we include first name and last name on both of those. And now we have this offsets that look really, really good. And the nice thing about this is it'll change with our data. So if we filter this one out, exclude that, these things all adjust. So as our data grows or we filter our data, the offset labels adjust. Now, I like to do this with dotted lines. I'm using bars on this, but we could use a little measure names and measure values trick here to make this a line mark. Then we use a dotted line path, and we can use a dotted line instead of a bar, like a straight line. So anyways, that is with the horrible name variable offset label bar chart. Probably could come up with a better name, but a nice little technique. Actually had a lot of feedback, a lot of people using this technique recently. So that's cool. By the way, you could just rotate the whole chart, but that doesn't always work. And in my case, it did not work. So that's why I went down this road. All right, let's talk about something else. This is off-brand Rocky. I went to Midjourney and asked it to create a image of Rocky Balboa. It looked literally exactly like Rocky Balboa. And going to the Tableau conference, I was afraid of Tableau kind of panicking over, copyright infringement. So I asked Midjourney to make him look a little like off-brand Rocky. Did a pretty good job. You can tell it's Rocky, but it doesn't look exactly like him. Anyway, we're going to visualize the 5 Rocky movies. Yes, I know there was a 6 Rocky movie, but we're not counting that one. We're going to visualize the 5 Rocky movies, and we want to visualize the percentage of box office revenue. So you can see the dollar value, but you can also see the percentage. We want to focus on the percentage. So if we focus on percentage, I think a lot of people would just, we want to look at a pie chart, right? Pie chart, okay, does some things really well. We can quickly, if we didn't have these percentages, we could quickly tell that's about in the, just slightly less than 25%. That is a good way to quickly visualize the percentages. But if I didn't have these percentages labels, would you be able to tell which one's larger, the pink or the yellow? Probably not. They're not very good at comparing the true sizes. And then on top of that, Rockies, this kind of America thing, red, white, and blue. And we're using pink, purple, we're using these pastel colors. With a pie chart, you're forced to forced to use color. So colors don't match. The precision is very weak with a pie chart. Can't make those comparisons. So I don't love this solution. So maybe we just change it to a bar chart, right? So bar chart, that's pretty good. We can now, this is the pink and blue or pink and yellow. We can easily tell that Rocky 4 is slightly bigger than Rocky 3. That's easy to tell. And this has the sort of look and feel of Rocky. But the thing that I think it misses is that whole idea of part to whole, right? It's hard to look at a bar chart and immediately recognize that we're visualizing percentages and thinking about part to whole. And the other thing that's really weak about this is it's hard to estimate these values, right? If we took these labels off, and we do this in our training, by the way, people can quickly estimate this, but it's much harder to estimate this when you're comparing it against a bunch of bars and thinking of that as 100%. So my technique that I use all the time is something I call having your pie and eat it too. And what we do is we essentially do both. So we have a bar chart that allows us that precision. We can show the raw values there. And then we have an actual pie chart on each line that visualizes the percentage for that individual value. We can see Rocky 3, very easy to quickly estimate that to be around 25%, right? So we get kind of the best of both worlds with this pie and eat it too technique. Now, let's build this. I tell you, I always kind of mess this up, so we'll work through it together. So I've got this bar chart already built, 5 movies, labels with the revenue. I'm going to duplicate this, and we're going to make this our pie. All right, so let's start by making this a pie mark. I am going to change this to a quick table calculation, percent of total. Nothing will change from there, but I'm going to move it down here and let's make it discrete. I just want to display the percentage. Have you ever wanted that kind of precision, like 10 decimal points on your percentage? No idea why Tableau would default to that, but whatever. All right, and then maybe we make that red or something. I don't know what that color is, so just add that to our color so we have it. All right, so now our pie charts. Let's get rid of that label. Our pie charts are just big red circles. That's kind of weird. Why is that? I'm not really sure. Let's drag this on. I'm going to drag this down. You know what? I probably should have left where it was. I told you I would screw this up. So, and let's make sure we can. I'm not sure why that's not showing, but whatever. Okay. And let's format this as a percentage. Okay. So now our percentages are here, but Tableau doesn't really know what to do with this thing. It's looking at Rocky as this individual item and just saying, yeah, Rocky 3 is 100% of Rocky 3's revenue, right? And Rocky 2 is 100% of Rocky 2's revenue. What we need to do, we can tell it's 23.7% of the total. What we need to do for each, to make these little individual pie charts, is we need to figure out what the rest of the 100% is, right? So we can take 1 minus 23.7% and we get 76.3%. And we want to display that in a pie chart. So let's do that. I've already done this with this calculation. Essentially what I've done is taken 1. Let's get rid of this. My fingers work. Take this 1 minus this percentage that I just put in there. Sure, right there. 1 minus that percentage. That's going to be the rest of the percent of the 100%. And then we're going to use measure names and measure values to show the percentage and 1 minus the percentage. So let's do that. I'm going to put measure names on colors. I'm going to put measure values on angle. Let's make sure that we have this sum of revenue here and the 1 minus that percentage. Let's get rid of everything else. Okay, still not looking quite right. We don't think we need the movie on here, do we? Whatever, doesn't matter. All right. So the only thing I need to do is change our table calculations. Make sure we include movie in this. I think it's already included on this. You can see some things happening. Yep, it's included there. So let's just change our colors. I'm going to make this percentage this color here. Maybe we'll leave the other one white, and then maybe we'll just put a little red border around it. So now we have a pie chart that represents that individual item. Last step is just to put it on the dashboard together. So I'm just going to throw a horizontal container out here. We'll put our pie chart out there. We'll put our bar chart out there. Get rid of the titles. Make sure there's no sorting on there. Get rid of the headers on this one. And with a bit of cleanup, you have your pie and eat it too. Again, this technique I use constantly. I use it for Tableau public work, but I use it for business all the time because it does a great job at helping people see it is showing a part to whole, but also giving them the precision of a bar chart. So with that, yo audience, we did it. Ken, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Oh, you're so embarrassing, Kev. All right, so I've got a couple of sections here. I'm going to start with some cool font stuff. So if you're not aware, as of 2024.3 for Tableau Cloud, Tableau introduced full support for a whole bunch of new fonts. So these are the fonts. If you didn't know it before, the only safe font was the Tableau family of fonts. You might have used Arial and some other ones, but those were never guaranteed to be safe fonts. The only ones were that default Tableau. But now we have all these additional 7 additional fonts. Both the regular and light versions of these fonts will work perfectly in Tableau Cloud, so you have a little bit more options for that look and feel. Now, one thing I do want to point out is the way these numbers look here. So we've got some fonts that are what we call proportional, use proportional figures for numbers, and some that use tabular. So here on the left, we've got a proportional font Poppins, and on the right, we've got tabular font Leto, right? And you may wonder, why are we even talking about this here? Well, when I look at this, it sort of tricks my brain a little bit because I see that the text here is a little bit less wide than the one below it. And, if we go back here, you'll notice that the fonts on the right, the characters are all the same width, right? So it's not a monospace font, not all characters, it's just the numbers that work like this. But with a proportional font, they're all different widths. And again, you might wonder why this matters. Well, remember when we're visualizing data in Tableau or any visualization tool, we're using these pre-attentive attributes or using things like length and width and color and size to find insights in the data, right? And one of those key ones is length. It's what we use with a bar chart, right? So when I see this, my brain sees something like this. It sees these widths of these texts as being meaningful, and our brain sort of short circuits. And initially you're thinking, well, that fourth number is actually smaller than the number below it, and you get confused, right? And this actually happened to me the first time I used this Poppins font in Tableau. I was like, whoa, there's a problem here, right? And so we just really need to be careful when we're displaying data in a columnar fashion like this. It's probably better to go with one of those tabular fonts rather than the proportional font, so that we're not doing that sort of short circuiting of our pre-attentive attributes, which are so key to data visualization. I'll leave you in this section with this sort of chart that shows you is it safe? If it's Tableau Cloud, any of those 7 fonts plus the Tableau family are always going to be safe. Tableau, even if you don't have it installed on a computer, Tableau will sort of force it to install onto the browser. Things that are considered web safe fonts, you may have heard that term. They are not safe from a Tableau perspective. They have to be on the cloud and Tableau Public's sort of standard set of fonts, which this list is those here, and they have to be installed on your local computer. So if it's web safe, doesn't mean it's what I would call Tableau safe. And then any other sort of fonts really have to be on that cloud and all end users' computers. So generally speaking, try to stick with one of those 8 fonts. If you're using server, it's a little bit different after 2025.1. Or before that, none of these new ones are safe. After that, they're all safe, but you do have to go and manually install those on the server, those fonts on the server, so that they will work. All right, so let's do a couple of font tips here. So here we have a chart, and you'll notice that some of this text here, might be hard to see on the screen, is a little bit lighter in color. And Tableau sort of does that for some reason. The first one is like dark, and then the next ones are lighter. I don't know why it does that. And typically what I would do is sort of right click and then change the color and then go to the next column and do that over and over and over again. But there's an easier way to do that. If we just go to Format and Font, we get to some font settings for this sheet, right? So we could do something like change the pane. Let's just choose this sort of red. If we change pane, it's going to change basically anything that's on the text card. If we choose header, it's going to do basically everything else, right? So all of our dimensions, and then the column headers, as well as our measure headers. If we do tooltip, obviously it'll do the tooltip. Title will do the title. But if we just go to worksheet and change that one, it'll change everything. So if we just want all of these to be a consistent font color, you can just choose that color for the worksheet font, and it'll make everything the same. All right, so here's a little bit more of an involved one. So here's a highlight table, and you notice that the text on the darker squares is dark. It's dark text, and Tableau should automatically switch that to white text if the background is dark. Now, this is something I've noticed started happening a couple of years ago. I don't know exactly why it's doing it, but I've struggled to find a solution for it. So I'm just going to walk you through sort of my thinking and how I was trying to work through this issue. Again, remember that Tableau should be forcing this to be a white font on these darker backgrounds to create that color contrast. So the first thing you want to check if you run into this problem is to make sure that the color is set to automatic, right? So we come into the color and the font. We can see it's set to automatic, so it should be automatically doing that switchover. I'm not sure why that's happening here. So let's keep going. The next thing to consider is the size of that text, right? So if the text is too large, it can kind of bleed outside of the cell, and then it doesn't know how to color it because of the overlap of the background. So making the text a little bit smaller, let's make this 15, and that doesn't seem to fix the problem. So there's something else going on here. So let's just try clearing the worksheet formatting. If we go to format and then clear worksheet formatting, it should sort of reset those things, right? So let's do that. And it does. It changes these to white colors, but it also got rid of a whole bunch of other formatting, right? If I go back, you can see all the formatting it dropped. And I could come back here and reformat it and get it working. That's a solution, but I'm lazy, so I want to find an easier way to do this without wiping out all my formatting. So I know what's happening here, and what is happening is that I've actually overridden this worksheet font. At some point, the worksheet, the workbook's overall worksheet font has been reset, and it's just using that color. Now, it shouldn't do that. It should not care about that. It should still push that into white, but we need to find a way to sort of reset this here. So one would think there's this handy little reset to defaults button, right? That should do it, you would think. Let's click it and see what happens. And it doesn't fix the problem. It does change everything back to the Tableau family of fonts, which is the default for a workbook, but it doesn't fix that font color issue. So that doesn't help. But I don't know, I got this weird little theory here. What if we just try overriding this again? Let's change this to this red. And now let's click this. And for some reason, if we change that color and then click reset defaults, it does fix the font color. But it also changed everything in the Tableau fonts. And again, I'm lazy. I don't want to have to do all that again. So let's see if we can find a different solution to that. Notice this little sort of circle, this little bullet point that is right next to this. That just indicates that we've overridden that font in some way. So you would think if I click on it and close it, get rid of it, it's just going to fix it, right? Nope, nothing. Did absolutely nothing. Let's go back. But you know that little trick we just tried a minute ago? I don't know. Maybe let's try that again. Let's change this to red. And now let's click this little X, and there we go. It keeps everything poppins, and it returns my fonts back to being automatic, either white or black, depending on the background. So if you run into this problem where you've got a highlight table, but it's not switching the color of the text, go to Format, Workbook, come in here, change the color of that worksheet font, and then click the X, and everything should be fixed again. All right, so that's all for fonts. I'm going to switch to some random tips, just a bunch of different cool tips that I've found. So If you didn't know, I don't remember which version it was, but Tableau recently introduced the ability to do dotted lines. So here I've got a dual axis chart showing sales and some target. And when I do have like these target lines, it's nice to do maybe like a dotted line or something like that. So I'm going to go to the target axis, click on path, and I can change that to a dotted line. So now I can easily see when my sales are above that or when they fall below that target. But I'd like to take this a step further. I'd like to add some color, make it like one color if it's above the target, one color if it's not. So I'll create a calculated field like this, saying if it met the target, well, then 1. If it's above the target, then 1, else -1. We will drag this onto the color. And now we get that color. We can see blue met the target and red were below. But notice what happened to our target line. It's no longer dotted. And I come to my target line and click on path, and these options are grayed out. I can't change them anymore. So what's happening here is that I'm not sure why, but Tableau doesn't allow you to do these line patterns if you're coloring the line based on an aggregate. So you see the AGG, this is an aggregate, has to be an aggregate because I have to sum the sales and compare it to the sum of target, right? So I want to show you a cool little workaround for when you run into this situation. I've run into it several times. And so this is a cool little workaround for doing a sort of pseudo dotted line. Instead of a dual axis chart, we're going to start with measure values with sales and target on our measure values pane. We're going to go ahead, and again, we can't, we haven't colored these yet, but we're going to color these now by met the target. And now I obviously can't change these patterns here. Now we're going to add target as a secondary axis. We're going to remove that from the color. So now it's just black. And then we're going to do a dual axis and we'll synchronize those axes. So now our target line is just black, right? But it doesn't have anything on color anymore, right? So the other axis has the color. This one doesn't. So now what we'll do is just change the color of this to white. And now we'll change this to a dotted pattern. And the background color from the other axis sort of comes through. If you want, you can fiddle with the size to create bigger spacing between that dotted line. And now we have this sort of pseudo dotted line that is colored by an aggregate. All right, so a moment ago when Kevin did the Rocky chart thing, he dragged a horizontal container on there and then tiled horizontally, right? Well, did you know that there is no difference between these horizontal containers and the vertical containers? These two are exactly the same. You're shaking your head. You're like, no. One I can do with I can tile horizontally. The other one I can tile vertically. Nope, they're exactly the same, and I'm going to prove it to you. So we're going to just filter, or we're going to float a horizontal container on here. I'm going to change the layout and just put a sort of a outline so you can see that container. Right. So if I look at the item hierarchy, I can see it is a horizontal container. It says it right there, horizontal container, right? So now I'm going to take a blank and I'm going to drag it in there. Let's color this blank. We'll give this purple color. And then I'm going to drag out a blank. And of course, I can tile it horizontally, but watch this. I'm just going to drag that up a little bit. And now all of a sudden, I took a horizontal container and I tiled this blank vertically. Let's add some color to this one so we can see it a little bit better. We now have vertically tiled objects in a horizontal container. And if we look at the item hierarchy, it's now a vertical container. Now, if we try to add another thing to it, I can't do it horizontally anymore. I can only drop these in vertically. So what's happening here is that when you drag these containers out, they don't actually become a horizontal or vertical container until you tile that second object. You tile that second object, you're choosing whether it's going to be a vertical or horizontal container, and it's going to change this type of container. Now watch if I remove one object and then drag in a blank again, go back to the layout, it's now a horizontal container again. So once you have two objects in there, it becomes that type of container. The third object, you can only tile that way, but until you have those two objects, it's sort of a flexible thing. So next time you need a container, don't worry about picking the right one. Just drag one out, tile it however you want, and it'll become the right kind of container for you. All right, here we have a table here. And you'll notice these dates, we have some null dates. Now, we as data people know what null means, but our end users get confused by that. What is this null thing, right? So I like to just get rid of that rather than not see that, not have to see that, just have like it, just leave it empty, right? Which is more, I think, a little bit more meaningful to them. So how would you typically do that? Well, you probably use an alias, right? So you right click and you go to alias, but there's no alias option here. Aliases are only available for string fields, not for dates. So what I would typically do is create a calculated field like this. And now I'm in the US, so we do this insane date format that makes no sense. But I would probably do it kind of like this and create a string. Then we drag that onto the view. And that works okay. But as soon as you sort this, it sorts it as a string. So it sorts by month first and then day. And that doesn't really make sense for dates. So then what I would do instead is format it as year, month, day, right? And then that way it'll at least sort properly. But it sure would be nice if I didn't have to do this. I could just leave it as a date. Well, here's a cool little trick for that. If we go to that field and we change it temporarily to a string, now, since it's a string, we can do an alias. Let's just do an alias. We'll just put a space in there. And now let's change it back to a date. It's now a date, but it keeps that alias and fixes that problem for us. It's still a date, but we now don't see that null value, which is exactly what I wanted. While we're here, I want to show one other little trick. Here, I like being able to just have my users be able to sort these however they want, right? So I might want to sort this by the highest profit. So I'm clicking this and it's not sorting and I get confused. My users absolutely are getting confused. Like, why does it not sort? So let's scroll down and see if maybe we can figure out what's going on. Well, I see Harry Olson here. Harry Olson, the customer name has 5 different customer IDs, which is really weird. But what's happening is, now watch this if I click this. So it's sorting it descending now within Harry Olson. If I do it again, it'll sort ascending and then it'll go back to alphabetical. So it's doing this nested sort within each customer. And because most of these only have 1 row per customer, it's not really sorting anything. What we want to do is make sure that every row in the table is completely unique so that we can sort them all as a whole. And to do that, we want to create a sort of a pseudo unique key for that. So what we're going to do is create a calculated field called unique ID. I know that the combination of customer name, ID, and segment is going to give me a unique row in my data. So we'll just create that field. We're going to drag it onto my view in front of customer name. Now you notice every individual row is its own row. There's no nesting going on here. We don't want to show this thing. It's not really useful. So I'll right click and hide that. And now watch, if I go all the way to the top and sort this, it'll sort every row individually. So if you ever have that problem, you want it to work more like an Excel table, just make sure you've got a unique field that identifies each row on the front. Okay, couple of cool little tips here. Did you know there are hidden functions in Tableau? One you may have used is random. It generates a random number between 0 and 1. Well, Yovel Dutel, who leads the Tableau user group in Paris, did a whole bunch of investigation and found a whole bunch of other hidden fields or hidden functions. So I'm going to show you 2 of them here. So here we have 9 players who have each rolled a 20-sided dice 15 times, right? And each player's roll is in its own measure here, okay? So if I looked at each of these rolls and I just wanted to get the maximum roll, I'd have to do something like this. I do have to do max, player 1, player 2, and then of course we want to do player 3 as well. So we put player 3 in here, but we get an error because max can only take 2 inputs. So what we have to end up doing is this sort of nested max. And I'm not going to write it all out, but what it ends up looking like is this, where you have max, player 1, player 2, and then another max, and then another max, and all these nested max statements, which gets really kind of confusing. So UL found this really cool little function called greatest, which you would think is pretty similar to max, and it is, but look at this. We can put as many different inputs in there as we want and no error. So our end function is much simpler, much less complicated, and gives us the exact same results as the max does. One other one I like is like. So here we have some data with some email addresses. You can notice some of these email addresses are invalid, right? So there's no .com here. This one doesn't have an @ right? So if we think about an email address, it's basically a string and then an @ and then another string and then a period and then one more string, right? So it's just a pretty simple pattern. If we wanted to verify these email addresses to see if they're at least in the right format, currently in Tableau, we have to use regex. Now, I don't know about you, but regex is like hieroglyphics to me. I do not understand it. This is what you would do in Tableau to do that match. I have no idea what this means. I just searched and Googled for it until I eventually found something that worked, right? Now, this does work, but there's no way I'm coming up with this on my own because I just cannot make sense of regex. So Yovel found this handy little function called like, and what we do is we pass the string that we're checking and then just a simple pattern matching. This is like a pattern matching that you do in SQL. This little %sign is a string match. So we're looking for a string and then an @ and then another string and then a period and then a string. Very simple, very easy to understand. And it gives us the exact same results as that regex. All right, one last tip, dealing with dates. So here we have some data. We have some dates in our data. And of course, we work in businesses generally, right? So our data is getting updated every single day. So we're refreshing that day on a day-to-day data on a day-to-day basis. I might, on this particular view, give my users the ability to filter down to dates. So let's do a range of dates. We'll click OK. We'll show this filter. And again, my data is changing on a regular basis. I know I've got data through the end of March here. So let's refresh this extract and see what happens with our data. So I did the refresh and it didn't change anything. It's still only going through the 24th, but I look at my filter here, I can see all the extra space here. So me, or my end users, if I've deployed this up to Tableau Cloud or Server, my end users, every time they come in here, every day it's getting new data, and every time they have to come and just pull that thing to see it. What I really want is for it to automatically push that filter out to the end. So there's a couple of different ways we can do this. First of all, we could do it as a discrete date. So we'll do individual dates like this, and we'll just use this use all option. We show that filter. Now, when we refresh this extract, it automatically selects all those new dates, right? And shows our data here. Now, I don't like this. I just want a range filter. I don't want people to turn off individual days. I just want them to select the first date and the end date. So I don't love that solution. So the solution typically and historically, what I've done is to use parameters. We'll create a parameter for the start date, and then we'll create another one for the end date here, right? But what we want to do is automatically populate those. And we want to look at the data and get the first date and set that to the start date and then the last date and put that in the end date. So we have to use dynamic parameters for that. To do that, we need a viz-independent calculated field, and we make it viz-independent by using a fixed LOD. So we're doing a fixed LOD to get the min date and a fixed LOD to use and get the max date. And then on the parameters, we're specifying it to use that last date and that first date, right? And then finally, we want people to be able to change these, even though they're defaulting to those. So we need a calculated field that's going to filter the view based on those parameters. We use this date filter like this. If the date is between those, then we keep it, else exclude. So let's put this on keep. And now let's refresh our data, see what we get. It's going to automatically update our end date to the 31st, shows that data, but I can still, as a user, come back and hide some of those as well. That works great, but it is a pain in the neck. It's a lot of extra steps. I'm going to show you something way, way, way quicker and way, way, way easier. So we're going to go back to that original view where we had this range filter on here, where we're doing the range between the beginning and the end. All we have to do is change this to special and choose all dates. So watch what happens. First of all, it doesn't seem to change anything on the view, but watch what happens when I refresh the extract. It automatically pushes that out to the end date and shows all of our data. So next time you need to do this, just make sure that you've gone to special, selected all dates, and it'll automatically update that date to reflect your date. I will note that if you're developing things and you switch this around and you're testing things, it will switch it back to this range of dates. So before you publish, just go to special, change it to all dates, and then publish. All right, that's all. Hand it off to Kevin.
All right, I'm gonna wrap us up with some random tips. So we've got this table, and it shows category, country, region, then segment, and then ship mode, and then we've got quantity, sales, and profit. And so there's a lot going on here. So maybe we add some subtotals to make this easier to read. So let's go to analysis, totals, add subtotals, and wouldn't you agree that's a lot easier to read? Hopefully, sense my sarcasm. I think it's darn near impossible to read. If you didn't know, you can actually control what shows in subtotals. So if we come up here to segment, there's a little checkbox here. We can uncheck segment. So that backs that up. Do it here. We can do it all the way up to category. And now we just have subtotals at the category level. So much easier to read, and you have full control over those subtotals. Okay, we've got this chart. It shows the sum of sales by month. And yeah, this looks good. Looks like our sales are going up throughout the year. That's exciting. Let's add a trend line to this and see what that looks like. Show trend line. Trend line can't be computed. Well, the reason that trend line can't be computed is this discrete month up here. So we can change this to continuous. Then a bunch of stuff happens. Our bars get really small. I've got it sized up as big as I can. That's annoying. Well, let's just make it fixed to see if that helps. Sure. All right. It's automatic. I'm just going to type in 25 here, just to have a little bit of spacing because it's a month. And maybe you notice, I'm going to get rid of this little thing here to make it a little more obvious. But you notice my labels now aren't centered to the bars. They're centered to the start of that month. And that happens when you're using this continuous pill up here. So I hate that. If you got a lot of bars, it's really hard for an end user to know, hey, is November here or is November here? Not a good experience. So I'd like to center it up. I think when I was typing in 25, I saw, yeah, alignment. And it's grayed out. How many times is this is always grayed out, isn't it? Well, it's not exactly. You can fix this by using an exact date on our view. Okay. So instead of using this sort of aggregation of a month, we can create a calculation that does that in the calc. So we're going to just date trunk it to the order date to the month. I'm going to right click and drag and drop that on there as continuous. Okay, still looks bad, but now if we come to the size card, which makes no sense to have it in the size card, but we now have the ability to pick this alignment and we can align this to the center. Now our labels are aligned to the center of those bars. This is a weird one. I learned this from Sarah Bartlett, and I've done this before, so I was like, yeah, this is pretty cool. So we got this bar chart for these different subcategories, and then we have a scatter plot. And of course, we're using color so that we can match up the total sales in these different scatter plots. We can tell storage is this brown color, right? But I'm curious, like I'm the category manager for accessories, so I really would like it to just default to this, right? So, where categories is dark, everything else has its own color still, but it's just this faded color. So we could do this. This is how I've done it in the past is I've clicked this. I like that color. So I'm just going to come in here, edit my colors. You can see they're still full colors. It's just highlighted using the legend. So I could just start color picking these, right? Do that for each one of these. All right. This, I'm going to spare you the details. So when we're done, that color is actually applied here, or we can just back that out. And what we can do is click on here, and then we right click, and there's this weird option, assign highlight colors to palette. And now if I deselect that, what we can see that those colors have been assigned to the palette, those faded colors. We go back to the dashboard, you'll see those faded colors applied. It's not being highlighted here. It's just applied in the color palette itself. Kind of a weird tip. Okay, here I have a table. It's just wanting to show the hierarchy. We've got, country, then region, then state or state province. And I don't want to measure here. I just want to show the breakdown, right? But when we don't have a measure, we get this ABC thing, right? So we often want to get rid of the ABC. There's a couple of different ways you can do that. You can make it a polygon mark. That'll make it go away. The problem is if you have any sheets with a polygon on them, you won't be able to use Tableau's animations. And even just the transitions when you change a filter or something like that. I think there's a really nice experience for an end user. So I almost never use polygons anymore. We could use text. I could just double click in here, put quote, quote, throw that on the text card. That's great. Disappears. But it shows in the tooltip oddly, and I can still like select this. It's kind of a weird experience. So I don't like that. Maybe we make it a circle mark, right? And then we just bring the opacity all the way down. It disappears. Well, guess what? The circles are still there. What a weirdo experience for an end user clicking there. So if you grew up in the 80s and 70s, like Ken and I, you probably played some Nintendo, and you might remember, what was it, Capcom games? I don't know if it's Capcom or not, but I remember specifically the game Contra. And they had a cheat code in Contra. It was up, up, down, down, left, right, BA, start. And when you did that on the start screen, you got 99 men, and you and your buddy would go just crush the game, right? And the game was fun. When you had 3 men, it was impossible to beat. But when you had 99, yeah, it was a lot of fun. Well, did you know that Tableau has a cheat code for getting rid of the ABCs? That cheat code is right, 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 long hold left, 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 left. No buttons or anything like that. So right, 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 long hold left, and then 5 lefts. I'm going to show you how this works. So I'm going to hit the control, hold the control key, and I'm going to hit the right arrow 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Then I'm going to long hold, which means just drag this all the way to the left. You can see it's still there, right? You can see it's still in there. There's a couple lines there. But then if I hit the control key and hit the arrow left 5 times, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the thing completely disappears. Jeff Schaefer figured this out. I have no idea why he spent any time. I think he did it on accident once. And I think that's pretty cool. I don't know how valuable it is. To get it back, you can just do go to cell size and text cell. It'll come back. Make this a little taller. Let's just do it one more time. Control right 1, 2, 3 times. Drag it all the way left. Control left 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's gone. Weird, weird thing in Tableau. All right, I call this the quickest table ever. Well, not this particular part. If you're building a table with multiple measures, you may do it a couple different ways. So maybe you drag the subcategory out there, and then you take, find measure names and measure values, put measure names over here, and then we put measure values on here. But the problem is I don't want all this stuff, so I got to go through. And if your workbooks look anything like mine, you probably got like a million calculations and a million measures. So this takes forever to find out exactly what you want, right? So I don't like that particular experience. So I do it a little bit different way. You've probably seen this. Drag subcategory out there, and I'll drag one of my measures out, and then I'll just take my other measures and just keep dropping them right on top of that. And then it's a more intentional experience. I built this table just by dragging specifically what I want. But if you know the measures you want, you can create what I call the quickest table ever just by selecting them and then pressing enter. So let's just do this. I'm going to click this, press enter, click this, press enter, click this, press enter, and we'll build a table. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you build the quickest table ever using measure names and measure values. Last one. You've probably had this pain in your life, right? You've got this this dashboard, and you got 2 parameters, and well, the title on this one's really hard to read because it's on the top of that dark purple background. So what you do is you're going to modify it, right? I'm going to go edit this and format this, change the font to white, and what happens is it changes the font on both of them to white. So, or maybe you can change the shading of it. Change the shading to purple. Well, it changes the shading to purple. Before, in previous versions of Tableau, you could not format parameters any differently. They all got formatted together. But luckily, I think about a year ago, Tableau introduced the ability to edit these individually. So if I right-click and go to Format, I now have the option to format all parameters or just this parameter. So I can go to this parameter, change the title to white, and this one's white, this one's black, and you can see both of them very, very easily. All right, that's it. Again, you can get this on Tableau's YouTube, on Salesforce Plus. You guys are going to have the recording for your Tableau user group, and then all the related content at flerlagetwins.com/coolstuff2025. Don't need that. Don't know why it's still in there. And with that, we thank you. And Keith thanks you as well. I don't know if we have time for questions or anything like that, but you tell me, and we'd be happy to answer them if people have any.
I don't see any on the chat, but I have a question about that null on the text table on the dates. Isn't that correct?
Don't ask. I know what you're going to say, Tor. Don't. Go ahead.
What's he going to say? I want to hear.
It has to be an extract, right? It doesn't work with a live connection.
Yeah, there are. I haven't tested it thoroughly, but I do think that it has to be an extract. It might work with certain data sources. Like sometimes these things work with file-based data sources, text file, or Excel. But yeah, I think if you have a live connection to a database, it's probably better.
And truthfully, I mean, I will tell you, I use a live connection. Other people, different scenarios, but I use a live connection about 1 out of every 1,000 times.
Almost.
So
Yeah.
That's my personal experience, at least.
Any questions from the Norwegian audience? Do you have a vote from the Norwegian jury? Nothing from Finland. Well, you can use the chat. If not, then thank you, guys.
All right.
See,
Thanks for having us.
50% of you in London, and hopefully 100% in San Diego.
Yes, definitely that. All right. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Lara, Blazevic, and I come from the Norwegian Offshore Directorate. And I'm going to talk a bit about our journey using Tableau from server to public. So a bit about the Norwegian Offshore Directorate. We are about 200 employees. Our main office is in Stavanger, and we also have an office up north in Harstad. We are a state-level specialist directorate within various disciplines, oil and gas, offshore wind, seabed minerals, and CO2 capture and storage. We are an advisor to authorities and industry, and we have a national responsibility for data from the Norwegian continental shelf. And in addition, we share data, analysis, and relevant factors involved in decision-making. A bit about myself. I'm a geophysicist by training. A geophysicist is someone that studies the underground using physical methods. And as a geophysicist, you can do many different things. I've had the opportunity to work with almost the whole value chain, and that includes field work where you collect the data or acquire the data. Data processing, modeling, and interpretation. I have experience from academia, the private sector, and public administration. And in Norwegian, we have a saying or an expression that is en potet, being a potato. And I think it's pretty cool. It means that you're versatile or can adapt to different things. And I think it's funny as well, because in many other languages, calling someone a potato is a negative thing. But I think who doesn't like potatoes? So I think it's very cool that it's something positive in Norwegian. And I've been working as a data analyst at the Directorate since fall last year. This little cartoon here is to illustrate a bit about being a geophysicist. So we had this running joke during my undergrad. Back in the day in the oil and gas industry, you could group the natural science professions in 3 main groups: the engineers, the geologists, and the geophysicists. And then we had this running joke that there's someone asking, what's 2 + 2? And then the engineer, a very serious person, they will answer 4. And then if you ask the geologist what's 2 + 2, they will think always big, give you like an approximate, and they will say, yeah, something between 3 and 5. The Earth hasn't changed much the last million years, right? So that's good enough. But then you ask the geophysicist, what's 2 + 2? and then we're very service oriented, and then we think, well, what do you want it to be, right? And here's where I draw the parallels with being a data analyst, right? You have 2 data points or some type of data, and you think about the user or the consumer. What do they want to see? How do they want to see it? So yeah, it could be a 4 with feathers, it could be a 4 with ears, it could be a red 4, it could be a green 4. So very service-oriented people. So very easy to go from being a geophysicist to being a data analyst. So back to work. Data at the Directorate. We are responsible for managing and making available data from the Norwegian continental shelf. And for that, we have 3 main channels where people can find data and also download them. So the most known products that we have that people use quite often are fact pages and fact maps. In fact pages, you find the data in table format. And in fact maps, it's based on an ArcGIS solution. So you find the data mapped on a map. And then we also have a website that is called norskpetroleum.no. And this is an initiative together with the Ministry of Energy. And this is more like an article-based website. But here you also find graphs and data where you can download the numbers behind it. I will focus a bit on fact pages because it's what we use the most for creating our dashboards internally. So it's an open data platform containing information regarding the petroleum activities on the Norwegian continental shelf. The information is synchronized with our databases daily. The fact pages are a key data source for both public and private actors, and they are used by operators, consultants, researchers, and authorities. All data on the fact pages are available through REST API. And from last year, we have an approximate of 500,000 visits yearly. A bit more on the technical side of databases and how we have it at the Directorate. We have many domain databases that you can see on the left. That can be data about the companies, the licenses offshore or wells. And then we have a big or dedicated database that we call the Fact Warehouse. And this one gathers and makes available a selection of information from central databases. So it gets a bit from company, license, well, and the others, the most relevant, and it stores it here. And then this is the database that is accessible from tools such as Excel, ArcGIS, or Tableau. These ones are running on a Microsoft SQL server, our database. So now we go over to Tableau. We start with the Tableau server. We've been using it for about 12 years now. It's used internally for visualizations of data and statistics regarding petroleum activities. We also use it for data quality control in a process that is called the revised national budget. And this is a process where we get data delivered yearly by the operators on the Norwegian continental shelf that contain prognosis for production, costs, and emission from the petroleum activities. And we have also developed standard dashboards within different topics, for example, company statistics or well statistics, or a more general one that is called key figures on the Norwegian continental shelf. And this one are internally available for us through Tableau server. And as many organizations nowadays, we have a goal of being data-driven decision-making, and that's why we have this focus with this interactive visualizations or dashboards. A bit more about Tableau server. At the Directorate, we have 24 creator licenses. We have this Tableau desktop version from this year, 0.1.4. We are a core team of approximately 5 people that build and develop dashboards and visualizations for the whole organization. And we also get support from consultants, for example, Tore. That's the team of 5 people. And as you see, we have 24 creator licenses. So we have other colleagues that are also creators, but they might work on individual use dashboard or files. And we do have a goal of grouping this individual visualizations or dashboards, but we need a comprehensive mapping of what are their needs to achieve this, and that can take some time sometimes. And then we also have about 200 viewer licenses, which is in accordance with the size of our organization, such that all colleagues can see what we make and publish on the server. And then we can go over to Tableau Public. We got our first viz out in February 2025. And the motivation was to go from static to more interactive reports on our website. And our pilot project was the resource accounts report. This is a delivery that we have each year in February. And here's a screenshot from the report from last year, where you see a static figure from the PDF. And this is the discovery portfolio in the resource accounts from that year. And it gives you like a quick overview, right? You see that, maybe that each bar is one discovery. And they are grouped by the sea area, the Barents Sea, the Norwegian Sea, and the North Sea. And they are sorted from highest in resources to lowest. But other than that, you don't see as much, right? I mean, you see that the Barents Sea has the discovery with the highest resources, but you don't see what discovery it is. And you can always write text on your report, but it's nice to be able to interact a bit with the figures you have, especially when you make them so minimalistic like this. And then when we did this report or made this report this year using interactive figures in Tableau, we kept like the same outline, right? We make it minimalistic, but with an interactive figure, you get the tooltip, right? You can be on top of that bar and see the name of that discovery. You can also filter the sea areas, and then the sizes will adjust, and you can see easily if you just want to focus on the Norwegian Sea, for example, and then you can always go back to the original figure. And then just a short side note for those familiar with color theory and that have their eyes burning maybe because of the red and green. I just want to say that that's how it is in oil and gas. Oil or liquids are green and gas is red. And I'm very sorry for color blinded people, but if you're wondering why are we so bad with color theory, that's the reason. So yeah, I can go on. And since the resource accounts in February this year, we have published 3 other vizes. And but these ones are more like dashboard. The resource account were more like individual visualizations. And these dashboards, we embed them at sodir.no. And these are called key figures, exploration wells statistics, and resource overview per company. And making the data available like this supports one of our strategic goals at the Directorate, which is to be a clear and credible communicator of facts and analysis. And then a bit on feedback and learnings. When we went out with our first dashboard, which was key figures, we got positive feedback and input, both internally at the Directorate, but also from external people working at oil companies or service companies. and that's very encouraging for us. A bit more on the learnings. There was a lot of testing, publishing on Tableau server before publishing the final version on Tableau public. And I think that is a bit like irritating is that the Tableau's desktop interface is not always one-to-one with the Tableau server or Tableau publics. So sometimes you see something in desktop and it doesn't look that good, but then you publish it and it looks good on server or in public. So then you have like to test, like to make sure that it looks fine. So that will take some time. Another thing is that we publish in both Norwegian and English. And the way we've done this with the dashboards is that we have 2 files, one for each language. You can argue that you can have just one file and make a parameter, but you still duplicate the sheets, right? And then like a learning from that and a tip from anyone working with the 2 languages or duplicating things in general is that you have to have like good practices when it comes to QC or getting input from other people to avoid double work with formatting, because it's very annoying to say, okay, I'm finished with the Norwegian version, for example, and then copy the file and the sheets and say, I'm going to start with the English version. And then a colleague comes or someone from the communication departments come and say, oh yeah, but you could use this color or you could align the text like this. And then it's like, okay, yes, I can do it, but now I have to do it in 2 places. So that's double the amount of clicks, and that's not that nice. So some of that might be unavoidable, but it's nice to try to minimize it as much as we can. And another thing is that for the dashboards that are embedded on our website, we don't do a phone layout. But for example, for that first report I showed, we had a layout for the PC version and a layout for the phone version. And yeah, formatting the phone layout was also a bit time consuming. And before I say thank you, I saw this one on LinkedIn the other day, and I thought it was a bit funny, and I thought maybe some people would find it quite relatable. Someone asking, oh, how do you create those nice dashboards? And then it's very easy to say what kind of tool you use, like, for example, Tableau. But then when you dig into it, there's a lot more than just the tool you use, but the data quality, for example, or how are your databases built, or what are your user needs, and so on and so forth. And then I just had to modify it a bit because there was a thing on the list that was missing, a list from us, and that was help from Tore Levinson. And with that, I say thank you to you.
I didn't even do an introduction of you, so that's, but you did it yourself, so that's fine. This is a picture, well, of you, but this is a picture from DataFam Europe last year. So we are there. You see us? We're moving so fast that the camera couldn't pick us up. So this is Tero. He already have done something on Tableau Public, so you can go and check it out after as well. But now he's going to show you how to do this. He's so happy because he's from Finland, the world's most happy population in the world, actually. They're even more happy than us. I'm not sure, but I think it's because of the sauna. What do you say, Tero?
I think in my case, it's all the running. But yeah, thank you. You can find this kind of my running visualizations in Tableau Public. If you search Tero, there is quite a lot of these, and I guess now it's this one where there is actually missing kind of the thumbnail for some reason, but that's the running visualization what I'm about to talk to you. But in this case, I have about 15 minutes, and I would be showing you something like 25 or a bit more different kind of visualizations. So I unfortunately don't have too much time to actually discuss how I have done those. If somebody is interested about that, you can send me an email or send Elina an email to ask kind of some how to do this and how to do the data prep, etc. in some other Tableau user group. But anyway, I'll be showing you these from our Tableau cloud site. It might be a bit faster to view these visualizations from here, but actually before we jump into these visualizations, I have a couple of slides, not too many, but few. And yeah, my name is Tero Honko. I'm from a Solita company called Solita, and I am kind of senior data consultant or data architect or whatever. I usually just run and visualize data. That's all I do basically. And first question is, well, why? Why would I run and visualize running data? Well, because running is fun, visualizing is fun, and of course, if you visualize running data, that's kind of double time fun. But well, the main reason is that I have found kind of what Garmin or Strava kind of provides, these default visualizations. I find those a bit too, I'm not kind of getting all the data and insights I would like to have. So of course, I have to do it then myself with Tableau, obviously. And the process before I can start building the visualizations and analyzing those, what is kind of what I have to do first? Well, obviously, I have to collect all the data. And in this case, that kind of means running. And I have spent kind of collecting the data almost 1,000 hours at this point. So quite a lot of time just to get some data. I hope you are all as enthusiastic to collect data as I am. The next step is to, well, when you have collect your data or made some runs with your watch, then you download the activities, in my case from Garmin, the activities files, and also the single activity. For every single activity, download the data. You can also download the data from Strava. Then the next phase is to convert those single activity GPX files, which are actually XML documents. And well, Tableau is not the best tool to handle XML documents, so I have converted those to CSV files. So it's easier to kind of handle. After that, I do some calculations to calculate some kind of advanced metrics with Tableau prep. Here is a screenshot of my kind of Tableau prep workflow. There is quite a lot of everything in there. Let's not go any deeper to that way. The next, after kind of after Tableau prep, then I can finally go to Tableau desktop and model the data. And the model it's quite simple. It's not that difficult anymore. And after modeling, then I can finally build all the visualization, and I'm happy. And yeah, then let's go to see the actual visualizations, what I have been building. So let's see where I have, I guess it's this one. So the one is kind of summary information. So I have summaries about my total activity amounts, total distance, total elevation gain, total time. And this is kind of the all-time totals or KPIs. Then I have yearly KPIs and then kind of a monthly charts for each of these. These are by default split by activity, but I could choose also kind of just to have the total monthly amounts. But these are rather basic stuff. And then I have kind of the running total for each year, which I am usually very interested in. Am I kind of behind or ahead of last year's activity amount? At the moment, I am actually in distance, I am falling a bit behind. But actually then in elevation gain, I am quite far ahead comparing previous years. So in that sense, I'm happy. And then I have this kind of each activity is single mark here chart. This is kind of the monthly summary. Then I have weekly summary. That's almost same thing, but weekly bars and weekday charts. And then I have also the heart rate zones, because many people says that when you run a lot, you should run about 80% in your zone 1 or zone 2, kind of low heart rate. And here I can kind of check monthly that, okay, have I stayed below that 80% heart rate? And then kind of the amount, against the total percentage, and then I also have the kind of absolute hours of running in each of these. And I could also view weekly kind of figures, or also only the races. And why am I interested about only the races is so that I can kind of check that in certain races, how long times I have been able to push, for example, in zone 4 or in zone 5, which is kind of the maximum heart rate, and kind of that how long period of time. For example, here in this one race, I was able to run about 58 minutes with the maximum heart rate zone. So that's why I have been something like this. But yeah, let's go to the kind of best efforts visuals, and these are just kind of my race records, marathons, half marathons, etc., and also longest distances, biggest elevation gains, etc. I have this kind of a small trend here showing that am I improving in full marathon? I am not improving at all. Actually, it's rather flat, but in these shorter distances, I am improving a bit, perhaps. And this is also kind of a rather basic stuff. But then here in the segment, these race records are based on the single activity total time, which is the total time for that single activity, which have been marathon or something like that. But these segment records are the best times for certain distance in any part of any activity whatsoever. So if I basically what is based on the GPS, what have been the best 1 kilometer time in any activity at any part of the activity. So I have had to calculate kind of a rolling 1 kilometer pace for every single data point, which I have basically for every second in every activity. So there are quite a lot of kind of these calculations. Of course, it's easy to do in prep. But this is now kind of showing me what is my best 1 kilometer pace per month. So in the beginning, it was something like 7 minutes per kilometer. And then next month, it was already about 5.5 minutes per kilometer. And now the best have been this year 3:39 per kilometer. And actually, I can click this KPI here. Let's click that and see what happens. Because now it will, it didn't go. I have to click double. Now I have to click that. So it's a link to this single activity details. And it will show me kind of the details from that certain activity where I kind of managed to run this 5:39 per kilometer. But let's come to this a bit later. Let's see where I was here. Well, yeah, I think I have already discussed about these, even a bit too much, most likely. So let's go to the performance analysis. And that previous was only kind of the pace. And here in the performance analysis sheet, now it's kind of the pace compared to heart rate and heart rate zones. And this kind of a line graph tells me that what is the pace I have been able to run in each of my heart rate zones over time. And this is actually the thin bottom line is 50% percentile, and this is 75, and this is 90. So it's not so kind of accurate, but perhaps I'm improving or then not, I'm not sure. But actually, from this pace on the horizontal axis and heart rate on the vertical axis scatter plot, it's easier perhaps to spot the kind of improvements in pace with the same heart rate. For example, okay, this is the 2022 quarter 2. This is when I started, and here are kind of these blue dots. And these gray dots are all the other activities, but these blue dots are from that specific year quarter activities. And now if you kind of see that these blue dots kind of are moving a bit all the time to the right. So that means that I am with the same heart rate, I am able to run a faster pace. And well, I'm not sure if it's clearly seen there, but I also have kind of the tooltip showing the information. But this is quite nice actually to show that they are small by small going kind of to the right direction. Then I have a kind of the base analysis graphs, and this is something like for running certain distance. For example, here in 22, running 20 kilometer here. This, for example, this Tampere half marathon, I was able to run 20 kilometers in average speed of 6 minutes, 6 seconds. And it doesn't mean it have to be from the beginning. It can be at any part of the activity. It doesn't matter where it is. And now during this year, I was able to run 20 kilometers in average pace of 5:15. And actually there is also a lower one. And this is kind of activity specific. So each line is one activity, but I could also view kind of best of the year to compare that this lighter blue is kind of older years and these darker blue ones are kind of current years. So in here also I can view that the pace is getting kind of quicker when the years go by, at least mainly. Then I have kind of race analysis specific visualization, and this is kind of, I have the total elapsed time here on the top. Then I have the 1 kilometer pace here in the middle and my heart rate here at the bottom. And actually, let's see, this year's Finlandia marathon, I actually started quite fast, but then here after the half, my pace dropped down quite a lot and I didn't go so well. And what happened here in the heart rate is that I already went to zone 4 after 6 kilometers. And I went to my maximum heart rate zone about halfway of the marathon. Of course, I cannot kind of push the rest in this, and that's why kind of my pace just dropped. But in the Dallas Marathon a couple of years ago, in the beginning, the heart rate was in zone 2 and zone 3, and actually it went to zone 4 here in 25 kilometers. And in that specific marathon, I was able to kind of keep the pace very steady all the way to the end and even accelerate a bit. So in this visualization, I can kind of compare different kind of races, whether those are marathon or half marathon or something like that. But then the single activity view, let's pick something else, not this one, that's not so interesting. Let's have the race from this year. Where is it? Enontekiö, yes, there it is. Nuts Ylläspallas, and the Nuts is Northern Ultra Trail Service. And this is from Enontekiö to Pallas, 66 kilometers. And here I have kind of this bar here shows kind of the heart rate zones again, that mainly 38% of the activity was in zone 1, of course, because it was so kind of long activity. I cannot push it in higher zones. This shows that, and then I have kind of the summary info, the best 1 kilometer, 3 kilometer, 5 intervals of this activity. And then here in this list, I have kind of the 1 kilometer splits by default. But because this is so long activity, I might change it to 5 kilometer splits. And kind of it shows me the total time, split time, elevation gain change, and elevation gain kind of min-max, heart rate min-max, and average and pace for that split. And then I have the kind of line graph showing the heart rate, pace, and the altitude graph also. And here I can, because especially I kind of viewing the pace graph, because the pace is from every single data point, and these kind of it goes up and down, kind of. It's not so accurate that it would always show you exactly the correct pace, so it's kind of going up and down. That's why I also did this kind of rolling timeline, which shows me the rolling 1 kilometer pace, and that's this graph here, and that is kind of easier to see that, for example, here at the end of this activity, the 1 kilometer pace was, well, it's kind of showing 5 minutes 35 seconds about per kilometer. But I also have kind of these activity bests here, so I could highlight, for example, that this best 3 kilometer, when I have done it, it actually shows me the kilometers here, but if I click this, it will highlight it here in the line graph, and it will highlight it also here in the map, that where is this specific, or the 10 kilometer best time 1 hour 9 minutes. And I think that was in the beginning, if it would actually highlight it. Yeah, now it did. And actually, one small thing to notice, kind of Tableau details, is that usually you don't get this black border if you have some kind of a line on a graph. If I remember correctly, you don't get kind of a choose borders for lines in map. But actually, these are just data points, and that border, I have kind of cheated a bit, because that black border is just, sorry, here it is, another kind of map layer showing the route border. So I can get rid of that kind of black border, but I kind of like it more with that. But I could also have kind of the route slope as a color of the border. So kind of these small details here and there, what can be found. Then I have a bunch of different kind of maps. Have I already used all of my time? I don't know. Sorry, this is kind of running through the visualizations. But yeah, I have 3 different kind of maps. I have the trellis maps here, but to be honest, I don't, well, it might be nice some kind of to print it on a wall or something like that. Okay, let's see. It shouldn't take too much time because I have sampled the data a bit. So actually, I don't have all the data points in this data set. But yeah, this would be, it's actually rather not very useful, but it looks nice. Yeah. Then I have kind of a line map where each activity is its own line.
You could actually write some nice letters trellis map if you run in some city.
Yeah, that's true. Then I have kind of this line graph where each activity is kind of its own line that I can select and then highlight that, okay, what is the route for that specific activity here. And then I have the heat map also. And this have been actually useful because some of my friend said that she might have saw me someday running in certain bridge in Tampere. And of course I was, so let's see that if I was running there, because I can actually do that here. Because now when I let's zoom a bit to the center of Tampere and wait a bit so it focuses. Yes, now let's do it. So this bridge, I have run it sometimes. And I said that, yeah, I have sometimes run there. And I said, okay, when was it when you perhaps saw me? And she said that it was some Wednesday afternoon or something. And then I just, okay, let's highlight these kind of marks here on the map. And let's view the activity list. And now it kind of shows me all the activities that I have been running in that certain spot. And I was able to check that, yeah, 2024 Wednesday. Yeah, I was running there. Yeah, you was correct. It was me. Excellent. So the maps can also be not just beautiful, it can also be useful. But yeah, now I have this kind of activity list. This is rather basic. It's just a list. When it kind of shows the basic information again per activity. I could kind of, because I have labeled each activity, what have been kind of the training, what I have done. Kind of, is it kind of some kind of a zone intervals? Actually, I use Finnish terms like VK, vauhtikestävyys, PK, peruskestävyys here, but I could kind of search certain type of trainings and look only those. But then I have also this kind of HR graph list here also that kind of contains the heart rate graph in this list format. So you can kind of see instantly that what type of training it has been. Have it been some kind of an interval or what it have been. And especially also here, if I filter only the races, I can perhaps kind of see that how kind of to which heart rate zone or heart rate have I pushed in certain races. And that was the activity list. And these are about, well, these are not everything, but almost every visualizations that I have in this, in Tableau Public. I do have some more, as I said. I have done this kind of for a single activity, this kind of a KPI or summary of single activity. I have kind of the basics here, the heart rate graph, the pace graph, and the altitude graph. And this is kind of a nice, this kind of a box here, and everything about this one activity is there. So any ideas what I can do, what I could do with this kind of a nice kind of a square, almost square of one activity? Well, I could use that to create calendar of activities. And actually here, what I have done, I won't show it from Tableau Public or from Tableau because it's rather slow to actually get all the data, all the detailed data of 1 year together. But now I have kind of these calendar views of my runs. Let's see which year this was. This is this year, 2025 running calendar, and these are all the activities I have done. And this is, for example, January. I started the year doing this kind of a hill training, so going here up and down this hill in Kangasala. And then let's see, is there something else? This looks nice graph because this is kind of a tasotesti or lactate test where you kind of run 1 kilometer with certain heart rates and then they kind of measure the lactate from your blood, etc. But that's what kind of that looks nice as a graph, so it's nice to perhaps end here. So that's kind of what kind of running visualizations and stuff I have created. Thank you.
Yeah, it's really fun to see nerding, both with jogging, running, and then also with data. So that's. By the way, I ran like 30 minutes on the treadmill yesterday, but I didn't visualize it. Thank you, Tero. That was.
Yes.
It looks like
Thank you.
your training actually helps. You get in better shape. It looks like.
Yeah, and I'll be also better using Tableau after doing this.
Thank you. We'll before we go over for the last two speakers, we're going to take a 5-minute break.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Guomundur, called Gummi. I'm from Iceland, and I work at CCP Games, which make video games. Our main the main game we make is called EVE Online. If anyone has ever heard of that. Just a short introduction. I did a bachelor's in psychology in Iceland, and then I did a master's in statistics. And I started working at CCP a long time ago in 2012. Started as a game master, and then I went to become a financial analyst, and then a data analyst, and then I moved from a senior to a lead, and I'm now the manager of the data analytics team. And the data team at CCP is a 3-armed kind of team at the moment. So it's analytics, engineering, and machine learning AI team. These are our kind of main data assets that we use today, which are contrived of many different data sources. But we have a data warehouse, we have a data lake, and then we have a relational database, which is used to service kind of external services such as our websites and launchers and our APIs that we feed to the players externally. And then the final element, which we are kind of bringing up to speed now, is a Databricks environment that can where we set up models and basically take data from the other sources and feed them back and kind of treat them somehow, create specific models and feed data back into the other data solutions. We do a lot of different types of deliverables. It can be anything from a calculation or a number just shared with some curious game developer. It can be a data set. It can be a live data set, a tabular data set of some sorts, or a more complex data set. We make Jupyter notebooks, D3 JavaScript, HTML notebooks or files. We have a bespoke kind of Python created Dash solution where we can make things that are sometimes a bit difficult to make in Tableau or just require some unique features. So then we make those things there. Otherwise, we use Tableau as our main tool for dashboarding, but we also just write blogs and create presentations and have chats. And we started using Cursor AI a lot, and we for instance use that to write a lot of our JavaScript analysis. But again, Tableau is our kind of main tool for live dashboarding or live reporting. We also use Grafana a tiny bit, but mainly Tableau. We have like 4 games in development at the moment. Well, Eve is not in development, but the other 3 are. And then we have multiple other stakeholders that use Tableau for various things, such as finance and other elements. I'm sorry, there's no live demoing on Tableau in this one. It's just pictures, but we create, like, these are all our main game KPI reports. So Eve and Galaxy Conquest, our mobile game, and our new MMO game, which is called the Frontier. And these are just samples of kind of how they look and how we set them up. And we do like various different types of reports for the games. Like this is a retention report, for instance. This is like something I made yesterday for the new expansion that we have for EVE Online that came out 2 days ago. This is for how players go through the tutorial in EVE Online, and this is how players run through, or like how they set up their industry jobs in EVE Online. And this is a dashboard around spaceships in EVE Online. It tells you basically how many ships are being introduced into the game versus how many are being destroyed or pulled out of the game by location, by type, how they're being pulled out, how they're being brought in, etc. And various other dashboards. But we also use it for different things. Like this is, for instance, a PowerPoint slide that we were asked to basically recreate in Tableau. Took a while to kind of get it to this format and kind of bend Tableau to our will, but it happened eventually. And now this is technically just a dashboard that can automatically update, but it's primarily used for like external, like investor decks and stuff like that. We've also, I've used Tableau also just to create visualizations for larger scale presentations. Like we have a conference every year, which is called eFanFest, where we bring players to Iceland to kind of talk about EVE and show them everything that's happening new. And we've had a presentation there. And I also think Tableau can definitely work as kind of an ad hoc analysis tool. Here I'm just showing the players kind of how different corporations or player groups in EVE Online have different, like how many alt characters on average a member in the corporation has versus how much log-on time the players have in each corporation. So it can be used for these types of purposes. It's also, I think, nice to be able to, you can use the highlighter tool in Tableau to kind of do this and make presentations and kind of, again, drag certain things into light, and it's very comfortable and easy to do this in Tableau, and then just export it as pictures. Same thing here, like this was just a graph that showed kind of how many ships were in an even line by type, and here you can see certain types being kind of highlighted quite easily to do in Tableau. And another graph that we and yeah, just some various graphs that we can make through Tableau quite easily and quite comfortably. And it's also like possible to embed stuff in there, like pictures, pretty easily. So, and you can put up all your custom logos and do everything like that. So that's pretty nice. I just wanted to speed run through this kind of and just show kind of what is possible through Tableau. So I think it does a lot more than usually you think it can do. And this is an example. I'm going to run through this extremely fast, but this is just a kind of an analysis I presented at FanFest. We were looking at kind of player dates of birth and how they were registered in our data sets. And it's, again, a fun way. It's pretty nice to do this in Tableau when you can just copy a this and you can or a tab, and then you can change it, and you can do it again and again and again, and you can kind of take people through an analysis and kind of how you derive to a conclusion, which might look something like this. Like in the end, you have some sort of an age distribution here. It started out as something really weird. So I think it's often nice to use Tableau to do this, because you can always copy kind of each step of the way. And I have a video here in the end. I hope it shows. Don't know if there's volume. I hope not. But okay, there is volume. That's interesting. It's a fun Eve song. But this is also just a thing that was made in Tableau. Which I made in Tableau. I don't necessarily recommend doing this in Tableau, but it was basically using the pages feature to create images and then like go between each time point and export each image via each time point, and then running that through a Python script to render out a video. I did this one. We were a part of a workshop in Vienna on complexity science, and this particular project which I was on, there was a guy that made he made a model that explained how forests or trees in the forests grow and decay and take space from other trees and kill them and eventually die because they've gotten too big in size and stuff like that. And I made all these animations and the pictures in Tableau, exported them rather tediously and ran it through like a MP4 script in Python. Don't really recommend, but it's possible. So yeah, that's kind of it for me. Just a brief little talk on what's possible in Tableau. Any questions? Is everyone still here?
There was just a yes in the chat, but that was for Sebastine. But really cool, especially in the end there. Also like all the different ways of presenting data.
Yes.
One question I had: are you also presenting some of this data to your inside of the game to your players, or that kind of statistics?
Like I said, I made this, like some of those pictures were from presentations we did at FanFest, but which was presented publicly to the players. But we have not at least used Tableau as of yet to share anything publicly with the players. We really only have like one thing that we share externally, like regularly with the players, which is called the monthly economic report, and it's kind of what do you call it? It's like an economic report on everything that's happening within Imo-Line, the industry, the economy, market, trading, resource gathering, destruction, etc. But we use Python for that. We used to use R for it, but then we moved to Python a few years ago.
Okay. Yeah. Any questions from you guys in here on the chat? People are very quiet today. I'm not sure. Nobody likes to ask questions. Otherwise, it's just because the presentations are so good in themselves, right? So I think that. So thank you, Guomundur.
Welcome.
And then we have, last but not least, Sebastine.
So today I'll be walking you through how to build a spiral chart in Tableau. This chart was initially inspired by Sam Parsons. It basically just gives us a clearer way to visualize measures that go beyond 100%. So usually we have just like pie charts, and with pie charts, it's really difficult to go above 100%, almost impossible, right? But then with spiral charts, you can go up to 200, 300, 400, 500%, and you can easily visualize it. So let's look at what Sam Parsons did. You see, he gave us different variation of how to visualize using spiral charts. So even though we're not going to be doing something as complex as what he has here, we'll just do something simple that all of us can do it together. So let's dive right in. So first of all, for simplicity, I've created an Excel dummy data, and in this data we have category 1 to 3. From category 1, you can see that the percentage is 120, category 2, 200, category 3, 320. And also I've created a dummy data. So this dummy data goes from 1 to 300. Let me increase this if it's okay. This dummy data goes from 1 to 300, 350, sorry. The reason why we choose 350 is because 350 covers the maximum of this category here, which is 320. So as a rule of thumb, whatever the maximum is in your data set, you have to go give a little bit of buffer. All right, let's go to Tableau now. So we're going to just simply connect this data set using the relationship, a one-to-one relationship. So this is the main table where we have category 1 to category 3. And this is the dummy data. So we are going to be using a calculation to make this relationship, just a simple calculation. We can just type in 1 for the main table and type in 1 again for the dummy data. And that is all. Now let's start building. So the first thing we are going to do is to create a parameter. We'll create 2 parameters actually. So the first parameter, sorry. Okay. So the first parameter is going to control the radius of the chart. So let's just name this radius and leave it as float and leave the current value as 1. Okay, if you see here, I've already created the parameters here. So we'll just delete it and delete it. So we create the second parameter and we can name this thickness. So this basically is going to control how thick the spirals are going to be on the chart. So let's keep this as 0.08 and click on OK. So next we're going to create our first calculated field, and we are going to call this calculated field theta, right? And this is going to be the calculation. So we'll say radians radians 360 multiplied by multiplied by, and okay, sorry, we are missing the step first. Okay, so the calculation we're going to create now, I missed the step. So we're going to create a calculation where the main category is going to capture the category on the dummy data, right? So let's do that now. So let's just say spiral stop. Basically, we're going to say if the number, so this is the number for the dummy data, right, is less than or equals to the percentage, then just return the number. And so instead of all our spiral to go up to 350%, it's going to end at where the maximum of the spiral stops, basically. So click this on OK, and let's go back to creating our theta. Okay, so the calculation is radians 360. So the reason why we're using radians here is because Tableau only works with radians. It doesn't work with degrees. So we are converting 360 degrees to radians, which is the full revolution of a cycle. And we are multiplying it by spiral stop divided by 100. So basically, this gives us the proportion of each point in the radians in 360%. So if we have 100% one, it gives us a full cycle 360. If we have 200, it gives us 2 cycles, which is 360 and 360 again. Yeah, basically. So we are going to be adding this by 90 degree. So radians 90 degree. So why we're adding this by 90 degrees? Because typically when Tableau is plotting its cycle, it starts from 3 o'clock, which is 0 degrees, right? But then we want our starting point to start from 90 degree, which is 12 o'clock. So that's why we're adding 90 degree here. So we click on OK, and we create another calculated field, and we call this radius. And we are going to be adding the radius parameter here, plus the thickness, plus theta. Sorry, multiplied by theta. Sorry. Yeah. So basically, what this does is it kind of like increases the as the angle increases, right? It creates like an increment, so which gives us a spiral. Basically, without this calculation, right, we are going to be having a cycle which is going to overlap. So when the category, for example, is 200%, it goes the first revolution, which is 100%, and it goes the second revolution, which is 100%. So it's going to overlap. So what this helps us do is that instead of it overlapping, it creates a spiral that allows it to like move as the angle changes, right? So that's what this calculation does. Okay, so finally, we're going to create our x-axis. I will call this x. So this is going to be radius multiplied by cos theta. So bring in our theta calculation and click on OK. We can easily duplicate this and edit it to y and the sine theta. Okay, click on OK. So what do we do now? We have all our charts ready. We change this to a line and drag X and drag Y. And we have a point here. The next thing we need to do is to take our spiral top to measures. Let's take this number to part first. And we have a really rough chart here. So put our categories to details, and we have our spiral chart here. Change this to discrete. Let's replace this. So this. Oops. Okay, we have our spiral chart here. So what do we need to do now? We can take this category to here, and we have our 3 categories here. Our chart is starting from the opposite direction, so we can easily change that by adding a minus sign. And yeah, we have our spiral charts. So for us to make this much more better and give us more granularity to add more things to our page, we can use map layers, and we can easily do that by using a, let's say, layer. Basically just type in make points and X and Y, X comma Y, sorry, clicking on apply, and on a new sheet, so just double click on this, and we have our make points. We convert this to a line chart and put numbers on parts, and we have this. So for us to get rid of this, we can switch it over. We can switch the rows and the columns. But before we do that, I want us to do something else. So we'll create another calculated field to create a new layer on the map. Let's say layer 2. We'll say make points 0, 0. Basically, this is just the middle of the coordinates. So 0, 0, and click on OK. And we use this to add a new layer. And let's swap this. Okay. What do we do now? So for the second layer, we can convert this to a cycle and reduce it in size, and take our categories to columns. Now we have 3 categories. I will take the categories to label text. So we have category 1, category 2, and category 3. Now take our percentage to text also. Here we can edit this a little bit. Let's make this bold. Increase the size to 12. Let's leave this so. Okay. Let's change the alignments to middle. And here we go. So with a little bit of cleanup, we can have this. You can have this like so. Okay. So now you may be wondering, how do we indicate if a particular category has gone over 100%? Like we see category 2 goes over 100% to 120%, as you can see. Category 1, sorry, then category 2 goes over 100% to 100% to 220%, same as category 3. So we can create another calculation and call this color. And we'll just use a simple logic. Sorry, my screen is kind of small. If spiral stop is less than or equals to 100, then we name this as A. Then we'll go else if spiral stop is greater than 100 and spiral stop is less than or equals to 200, then B, else C. So basically, we are using this calculation to catch different checkpoints. So 100%, 200%, 300%. We're using it to catch different checkpoints, so we can color them as we like, and we can take this here and put this on color, and now we have different colors. So I don't like this color, so I'm just going to change them. To green and just to purple, and change this to red. Okay, so this is how to build a spiral chart in a couple of minutes. And if you have any question, feel free to ask me.
Yeah, it's easy when you know all those calculations, right? If you don't know them, then we know them now. And this one is also published on your public profile, right? So we can see them and download and re-engineer with our own data.
Yes. Yeah, you can always text me on LinkedIn or send me a message on Twitter, and if you need assistance in the calculations. But the calculations are pretty straightforward. You don't have to understand them. You just need to know where to put them. And yeah.
It's pretty cool. I think that someone here might want to do something like this later on. Thank you.
Okay.
This is the longest ever Tableau user group we've ever done, I think. So I'm just going to go to this screen and say thank you, Tuck. I think we're full of stuff. So this recording will be on the Bevy page in not so long.